Welcome back to the Links Golf Club podcast, everyone. A weekly conversation show about our wonderful club and the world of golf. This week, Justin Thomas won a playoff. Dornoch gets some American muscle. And Xander, for some reason, launched an app. Let's talk about it. I'm Gregory, joined as always by Cooper and Chris. Boys, we skipped last week. We should be rested. You know, it's really important to give your body time to heal. We did that. We should be ready now to pump it up. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I played my first round of actual green grass golf in my home club in 4 months
Great.
yesterday. Man, felt good. So I am feeling up this morning.
What was most
Definitely have some
yeah?
work to do on the game, but
What was most rusty? Like emerging from the cocoon, like a butterfly over the winter, or from a bear's den.
Yeah, kind of interestingly, my short game was actually really good. I would generally think, I've been taking full swings in the sim all winter. That's, I think my full swing game would be fine. But short game and putting was great, and my irons were not great. Driver was working though. Driver was working. Stack system for the win. So that was good. But yeah, still you got to get in game shape still, that's for sure.
We're in big trouble with you and the driver, but it's good to hear that you're struggling somewhere. I think that is the schadenfreude of you playing poorly. I think it bears well for us unless you figure it out.
Yeah, there's still some work to do though. The gap between my my potential distance according to the stack system and my actual drive is still a solid 40 yards. We've got some launch conditions optimization to be doing here.
Hail as old as time. I can hit my 7-iron 190, but that's with a dead pool. Should you? Usually it goes 150. Coop, man, how you feeling? What's up?
I'm good, man. Yeah, load management. Took a week off. It's solid. In honor of the NBA. Good stuff. Cooper flag declared for the draft, which is exciting for
great
people
day
named
for
Cooper.
Coopers.
Yeah, big for Coopers. Really excited.
Where do you stand right now in the stack rank of internet known Coopers?
Of internet Coopers,
Like Cooper flag right now is 1.
Probably
has to be.
Yeah, he's definitely up to me. Bradley Cooper, it's last name Cooper. He hasn't made a new movie in a little bit, but still Philadelphia, big icon out there.
Probably outrates you.
Yeah, he certainly does.
Edged you out there for Philadelphia Coopers. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like 1 and 2.
Wait,
right
so
there.
now you're filtering it down to just internet known Philadelphia Coopers?
That's right. It's a narrow system. Yeah. But in terms of golfing Coopers, we're doing great. We're especially Web3 golf. I'm right there.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Awesome. It's great to hear. Make sure viewers, listeners, you come back each week. We'll do a power rankings of Coopers, and we'll see where Cooper lands. Cool. Well, it's good to hear that y'all are doing well. It's good to see you. We got a full slate this week, so let's dive in. But first, any plugs? Anything you want to announce? Obviously, in exchange for your time, you get to plug whatever you want. So go ahead and shout that out.
Yeah, I think I'll shout out just quickly. We've talked about this a bit before, but obviously we are super excited about Hillcrest Country Club in Kansas City. Memberships are open for our Linkstown members, but specifically the founding memberships, which is kind of an investment in the course, which we've opened up to all of our members, is closing out here in the end of the month, which is like a week from now, which is hard to believe. So we've actually had a kind of overwhelming amount of interest, way more than I expected, but we do have to wrap those up kind of in the next week or so. If you've seen that, if you had some interest, make sure you reach out quickly if you're listening to this. But really excited to get that group kind of filled out, rounded out, and then all of our other Hillcrest members we're in planning mode for Kansas City event this summer, the related signature event at Arbor Links, our trip to Callaway HQ. We're getting the details locked in for our founding members, visiting their R&D center and the tour fitting center that all our founding members are going to get to do a trip to. So really stoked about that. But yeah, wrapping up here in the next week or so.
Sweet.
What do you got, Coop?
Yeah, thanks to all of our members who took the survey this past couple of weeks. Really appreciate the feedback. Got a lot of things cooking for 2025. Hillcrest obviously being a big one. Member events coming up. We've got some regional events, including Sweetens Cove. Shout out to Greg and Tennessee, South Pittsburgh. If you haven't been, make the trip. It is fantastic. But yeah, lots of good stuff cooking. If you're interested in hosting a regional event, even just a couple of foursomes of Links members, pop in the Discord, say what's up. We'll get you set up with some other members in your area. And it's always a good time playing golf with other Links fam. So, lots of good stuff happening, but I'm ready to get into it today. I'm excited about, talking golf.
Yeah, it's almost like we have so much going on. This is just like a nice carve out of the week where we can just sit down, break bread with each other, and just enjoy each other's company. So, whirlwind of things that have happened over the last week in golf. First, let's talk about some really good golfers playing really good golf. Justin Thomas wins the RBC Heritage. It's his first win since 22. That was the PGA Championship. In case you've forgotten that Justin Thomas somehow won the PGA Championship in 2022. Shout out to Will Zalatoris completely evacuating himself on Sunday. He's now the 5th ranked player by Data Golf's rankings in the world, which is insane just to think about the discourse around Justin Thomas leading up to the Ryder Cup last year. Like, will he even make it? Grinding out on those sort of like last weeks, doing like side events, like almost like he was like in Q school just to like come back to relevancy. So really good to see him do that. Roll Tide. I'm not an Alabama fan, but I'll say it because he is. He also was plus 3.38 strokes gained overall using Data Golf. He only lost off the tee, which is interesting because, usually you're seeing guys who have days like that, like at least gain some fraction off the tee, but he gained a bunch in approach, a bunch around the greens, and a bunch on the greens. So like shout out to the Drive for Show Putt for Dough crowd. And he's been trending recently. He'd lost strokes on the field, sort of since the BMW, but he's playing really good golf right now, which I think bodes well for the Ryder Cup, which we'll talk about in a second. He's currently 6th in the Ryder Cup points rankings, so he would just auto-qualify right now unless Keegan Bradley makes a run and auto-qualifies himself. So just question to y'all, like, where do you think his game is at? Did you watch the RBC? I know, Chris, you were there, so would love to see the on-the-ground, just sort of, team Thomas there. But what do y'all think about Justin Thomas? Where's he at? Is it fool's gold? What do we think about him right now?
Yeah, well, first off, so I was there. Didn't take in a ton of the tournament. I was there with family in Hilton Head for my kids' spring break, but we did make it over to the tournament. I will say on Thursday morning we were there. There with the kids, there with the whole family. I was walking around with our oldest, daughter, 7 years old. Side note: golf tournaments, like, the worst place to go with small kids. Do not recommend. 0 out of 10. Or like 7-year-old was fine, but got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and like place where you have to be still and quiet and like considerate of other people. Not optimized for the young kid crowd. For anyone else who's considering doing that anytime soon. But we had a good time regardless. But so anyways, we kind of moved the small kids away from the golf a bit after watching a little bit. But was walking around with our oldest, and we were on the first hole, and we saw, I think it was Scotty Scheffler go off, and then in the group behind him was Justin Thomas, and I was like, Hannah, we can, the one time you can be loud is like when they aren't hitting. You can like yell. We could say like, "Go, Justin," and we can yell it as loud as we want. And so she was pretty psyched about that. So after JT teed off, he was walking by. We both yelled, "Go, Justin," as loud as we could, and he gave us a wave, and then he won the tournament. So I'm pretty certain that Hannah's got the magic touch. I may buy tickets to the rest of the majors and have her say hi to Rory. Just make that
the long-awaited like Hannah bump, I think is what I'm taking as like a degenerate gambler. I'm like taking the the Hannah bump here is big alpha. I also will say that like in my head immediately as I'm thinking about you taking your kids to the golf tournament, it reminds me of A Quiet Place, and just like want to see like the John Krasinski movie where like one of his kids, like spoiler alert, one of his kids isn't quiet and dies. So it is kind of like going to a golf tournament. It's like The Quiet Place. You got to keep this.
It's basically that, without the monsters, whatever's in there.
That's true. That was the day was it a course record, 61 on Thursday.
That's right.
Yeah.
Major Hannah bump. You're right.
Yeah, massive input there from Team Bruce. Yeah. Great to see that. Yeah. I mean, he's always been I feel like a fan favorite. I think the opening episode of the first season of Full Swing was Justin and Jordan Spieth, on the private jet, kind of getting that look after 2022. Good to see him win, but I mean, I was looking up some of his stats. He's got so many course records. He's always been a good golfer, right? It's really nice to see him come out and compete and like close it out. Obviously, coming down to the final minutes in a playoff there, but being clutch with that long putt. Those are the kind of moments you love to see, especially after the Masters hangover we had of a couple of real nail-biting short putts. There on 18.
Yeah, I'm hearing the plaid jacket is now almost as coveted as the green jacket. It's just, it's great. I think I've said before, Zurich is my favorite PGA Tour event coming up. They need to get jackets too, and just like every single event should be jackets. All right, so let's also then check in on Ryder Cup. So Ted Lasso in the Discord sort of posed this question about Bethpage course fit. Kyle Porter had a tweet that a lot of people saw, just sort of a barometer of where we are right now in the rankings. So just kind of any thoughts on the Ryder Cup? Number one, do we actually think like the big thing is Bethpage, it sets up for American players because they're bigger off the tee. Like the statistics don't really bear that out. They're actually shorter off the tee by strokes gained right now. Like if we assume the top 12 players on both teams make it, which won't be the case, but let's just assume that it is for now. They are a little bit more accurate. Both of you have played Bethpage Black, so kind of what's your impression? Like, does it matter? Does the distance matter? It is kind of just marginal. How are you feeling about the U.S.'s chances? Any dark horses you think are going to make it? Like, Ryder Cup's the best thing that ever happens to our lives. So just like, what are your thoughts right now? Any excuse to talk about it, I want to take it.
Yeah, I feel like we are still in way too early to make any sort of, declarations or predictions. I mean, you make predictions, but like I was seeing a lot of takes about like, yeah, the team is this, it's going to be this, it's all set, maybe there's one or two guys that are on the bubble, but like so much is going to change between now and then. There's still 3 majors to play. There's a lot of golf that's going to happen. So I feel like it's tough to like really have a lot of certainty around who's going to be on the team on both sides. Obviously, the top guys are kind of locked in, but I do think in general, I mean, Bethpage is like a bomber's course. It's kind of a U.S. Open style venue, or typically the setup's like narrow fairways, long rough, and kind of lends itself to the the bomb and gouge style of play, I think I would say. But like historically, the cliche is that favors the Americans, but I definitely don't think that's the case. Like obviously you got like Bryson or whoever fit that mold, but then they've got Rory, maybe even more so fits that mold these days, or it's like very much on the same level. So I honestly don't think, I feel like the teams are kind of very similar in terms of style of play, where there's not one leaning. So it's like there's not much you can do to like tune setup to favor the Americans or whatever, as much as you could like, whatever, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, or 4 years ago, 8 years ago. So yeah, I don't know, but I think it's going to be a good fight. It'll be interesting to see like, does the home field advantage like still play out as strongly when that isn't the case, when you can't just kind of, tweak the conditions to favor your own team.
That's my take. I think the course and the fans are who, I'm most bullish on for the Ryder Cup, just New York and New Yorkers being out in force, rooting for Team USA. I mean, right now it looks like Team Europe's really good, but like you said, we've got 3 majors to go, so we got to see how it plays out over the course of the season. But we just have to show up. We gotta really show up and be loud and get in their heads and let Bethpage Black do its worst to these Europeans coming over.
Polymarket style, just too early to tell question: who's winning, Europe or US? What's y'all's answer? Like, as we live and breathe right now, that'll change over time. US.
USA.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to take an extraordinary performance to kind of break serve,
Nice.
like
Tennis.
win on the opponent turf. Throwing a little tennis reference every once in a while, keep people
Golf and Leisure
toes.
Club,
I'm Team
That's right.
Europe right now, even though I dug in the stats a little bit when we were talking in Discord. Not that I'm rooting for Europe for sure, but I just
okay.
the Ryder Cup's fascinating because on paper the US team is better. If you're a casual follower of the PGA Tour, if you look at the top 12 right now, there's going to be a handful of guys you've never heard of unless you're an absolute sicko. And those guys are still better than the guys you haven't heard of on Europe based on how they're striking the ball right now in pretty much every facet of the game. The question is like, that same thing was true in Rome, right? Like, you basically have the same disparity in talent. And to your point, Chris, like, home field advantage, obviously Rome isn't Long Island, but like it plays out just as it has for the last 30 years. But if there's ever been a time, especially like bring back the same captain, having the consistency there, the amount of preparation work that they do, like they just outclassed the American team 2 years ago with just how they operated. And so, the US team has been used to just like going out and being better, which they are, but that gap is shrinking, as you both alluded to. So let's get on like much more important. The Ryder Cup Zurich Classic is coming up this week. Obviously, what's on everybody's mind, everyone's favorite tournament down in New Orleans. I love it because it's basically Ryder Cup light in the sense that they play 4-ball and foursomes. I said this last night. If you don't watch PGA Tour events and you like the Ryder Cup, this should be the one that you watch outside of the majors. If you hate match play, then don't. But at the end of the day, they play 4-ball on days 1 and 3. They play foursomes on day 2 and 4, and they get to pair together. So it's a team event. We lost the match play event, the individual match play event in Austin, but we have still this team play event here in New Orleans. So Rory's coming back. He took last week off, just nursing the hangover from the Masters wine cellar. But he's playing with Shane Lowry, who doesn't want to talk about Rory anymore when he's in competition to an event. So we'll see what that relationship is like. So I think that's probably everybody's favorite pairing. But I guess my question to y'all is, if you were a pro, who would you want to pair with in the Zurich? Who would your choice be? You're going down to New Orleans. You're eating at Galatoire's. You're drinking some Hurricane daiquiris. Who's your pair?
Yeah, a player who I really hadn't paid much attention to, but has super grown on me this season, especially with TGL. Shout out TGL for kind of giving some insight. Billy Horschel.
Billy.
He has a great record at the Zurich. He won back when it was individual. I think he won again in like 2018 or 2019. Almost had that hole in one last week. I'm feeling good vibes from Billy. I feel like, I don't know if he'd be able to compensate for my lack of talent. But I think it would be a good outing to play with Billy Ho as my partner. So that's my pick.
You know what? I think I'm going to go with a fellow Atlanta Drive GC team member. As everyone knows, Billy Horschel's an Atlanta Drive GC.
A legend. I mean, first ballot Hall of Famer, TGL.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Retire the number.
But I go with JT, and then we'd have Hannah come along with us and cheer, and then we'd win. So,
course
easy.
Record. Where's the first tee? What's the course record?
Seems like a fun hang. We got, from what I've seen in full swing, we had the, you saw like the no laying up Kapalua thing a couple years back. He and Spieth were playing with the guys. Like, seemed like a good partner. He's a good trash talker, right?
Sure.
You'd have that going, get some juice going on the matches. I think that'd be a good one to have. And he's in form.
My answer is Tom Kim. My wife thinks he looks like the kid from Up, if you've ever seen that movie. So I just want to ask him if he's ever heard that before. That's all I would ask, and then we probably wouldn't talk the rest of the round. I love young Tom Kim,
Yeah.
but that's the main reason I'd want to know. All right, wrapping up the segment, NCAA Selection Show is April 30th. I know you all have it on your calendars. You've been circling this date for weeks now. I just want to put our necks out there a little bit and just let's pick a team. Like the NCAAs are awesome. Again, if you're out there and you're looking to get more into watching golf on TV, like you're probably focused on the majors first. You probably watch the Ryder Cup. Maybe you bring in the player that whets your appetite. You start going into Pebble. You start going to the Memorial. You start going to Bay Hill. Like you do all like whatever. Then you enter the sickdom of getting excited about Zurich, which is where I am. But I think like the next level beyond that is amateur golf, right? And amateur golf is awesome. If you watch the Mid-Am, if you watch the USAM, but the NCAAs are really fun. So selection shows coming up. Right now, sort of the stack rank power ranking of teams goes Ole Miss, Florida State, Utah, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Oregon, Purdue, New Mexico, Little Rock on the Ohio Valley, Michigan State, North Carolina State, Augusta, shout out Patrick Reed, and then Richmond and Florida A&M. So that's there's still some conference championship stuff to shake out. Obviously, this is not an NCAA pod, so if you're out there and you're more of an expert, you can yell at us. But let's pick a college. Let's root for that college. I think we should do it together instead of like picking one individually, which we would usually do like in a betting situation. Let's like reach a consensus. What team are we going to root for so we have something to talk about?
Can I ask a dumb question at the beginning of this, which I should know as a person who's discussing it on a podcast, but what are they actually selecting? I have no clue how this works. Like, are they selecting, is this like NCAA bracket for basketball selection of matchups and seeding? They aren't selecting who's actually getting in or getting out, right? That's all qualification.
So it is brackets and seeding, right? So which regionals they'll play. I think there are bubble teams, and I think some teams don't get in. I think that's when they announce, like, here is the bracket being set. So there actually are 4 regionals. One is at Seminole Legacy Club, not the one you were thinking, in Tallahassee, Florida. Auburn University Club, which I hear is awesome. Atkins Golf Club in Urbana and Poplar Grove in Amherst, Virginia. And then Reno Gold Mountain at Bremerton. So those are all the regionals. So that's where, those teams will get stacked, they'll get placed, and then they'll try to qualify for, the next steps all the way through the rest of the tournament.
May Madness.
May Madness. I love it. I think we could start that right now. Right. I'm going to put in initial proposal for LSU. Sam Burns went there. I'm an LSU football fan. So any chance that I can, that's who I'm going to be rooting for, right? They haven't been as great recently. I don't see Kansas, which is my alma mater, on here, so I don't have another rooting interest. But what's y'all proposal? Who should we root for?
I'm gonna lobby for Georgia Tech.
Sure.
Georgia Tech fan, a bunch of family members went there and everything. Good golf legacy. David Duval,
Calvin Johnson,
Kuchar, a bunch of other folks. Don't get me started on football players. Calvin Johnson, Demaryius Thomas, surprisingly good wide receivers for a option offense.
They also beat Cumberland 222-0 in like 1905 or whatever.
That's right, biggest margin of victory in history. And John Heisman was the coach, so that's something. But golf wise, they've got Hiroshi Tai, who's the NCAA champion last year and just played in the Masters. Obviously, you win the NCAAs, you get into the Masters the following year. He did make the cut, which is a bummer. He had a good Thursday and not as a good Friday. But, they've got some hitters on that team, and I've got the personal tie there as well. So that's definitely who I would be rooting for. But that's my pitch for our consensus.
All right, I'm
pick.
convinced unless Cooper convinces us otherwise. Who you got?
I'm the Pac-10, Pac-12 maxi. I'm willing to sacrifice that for this particular conversation. I do like Auburn to repeat, but I think I would, sacrifice that for the good of a unified pick behind Georgia Tech.
Cool. Yeah, I'm good with that. Let's go Georgia Tech. Shout out Calvin Johnson. Shout out to just the burgeoning empire that Atlanta Golf is having right now between the TGL. They're 5th right now. They're projected to be 5th in the Seminole Regional. No idea the course fit for Seminole Legacy Club, so we should look into that for sure. But yeah, let's root for Georgia Tech, and then I would love to do a bracket once this is announced, so I'll be paying attention to when that bracket's released, and I think we should do a May Madness bracket. I want to go all in on the NCAAs this year. All right, so next up, let's do a little bit just for the course design and architecture maxis out there. Two pretty big announcements over the last week, I would say, if you're following closely. King Collins, famous for Sweetens Cove in East Tennessee. Shout out our upcoming event that will be there on May 15th. It was announced that they are going to be doing the master plan for the Struie Course at Royal Dornoch. All three of us played Royal Dornoch together last year. It's great. And then also Coore Crenshaw was hired to lay out Pinehurst number 11. So any thoughts on this? Go either one. Obviously, the Doak course, Pinehurst 10, just opened up last year to rave reviews. Anytime Coore Crenshaw are attached to anything, a lot of people talk about it. King Collins in Scotland sounds awesome. Royal Dornoch is less than 2 hours from Spey. So really just like the prime golf area, and that Highlands is like really blossoming. So thoughts on the new Royal Dornoch or the Pinehurst 11 stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think both are kind of big news architecture front. The King Collins thing I think is really interesting. Obviously, like we have interesting viewpoint on this, in that we actually talked to a bunch of different architects for Spey Bay, and ultimately landed on one. And then, but we talked to a bunch of folks, and so we've kind of had this type of thing on our mind. How do you take like a historic links course, and what's the best path to take with it for kind of making the best it can be. And then I would say King Collins is a pretty non-traditional pick for this type of thing, right? Like they're known for big, bold, eye-catching, kind of non-traditional stuff. Sweetens Cove, Landman, kind of the things they're known for are just really big designs. Whereas, like the standard thing for a Scottish links course to do would be to hire Martin and Niebert, which is like kind of what basically every Open Championship site has done or is doing. And, you do kind of more traditional stuff. They've edged out a little bit. You saw like the stuff at Troon, where they had the new 17th hole with the big sand scrapes or whatever. It was maybe a little more modern, or more modern and not as traditional links or what have you. But by and large, most Scottish links courses have been much more traditional. So it will be really interesting to see how this kind of what the direction is. I don't think they actually released the master plan. I think they just wrote a letter to members, which served as the announcement.
Yeah, this was broke on golf course architecture. I have not seen a single media outlet cover this yet. So it seems pretty early.
Yeah. But so it'll be interesting. I mean, clearly they had a pitch that the club liked and likes the direction. So it'll be interesting to see, is it more traditional? Is it a little more out there? It's for the Struie course, right? So it's the second course there. It's not the championship Royal Dornoch course. It's ranked, number 2 in the world, top 100 or whatnot. So it'll see if they go more traditional, or do they like do something a little more wild because they have the traditional championship course. It'll be fun to watch how that develops. I'm curious what you like, Greg. Your favorite course is Sweetens, and Royal Dornoch's like way at near the top of your list, I think. Like, I imagine you like this, but what are your general thoughts on the combination?
Excited. So I think I played Sweetens before I went to Scotland. And I think the first thing that stood out to me about Sweetens was the property, not necessarily the course. At that point, I just started playing golf. Like, I didn't have a great appreciation for great courses, and I'm still evolving my palate on what that means as I play more courses. But I would say that what I was first struck by was just the environment of Sweetens, right? It felt like going to the lake. It felt like going to a tailgate. It was laid back. It was casual. It was fun. You're there all day. Like, that's what I first fell in love with. I think then went to Scotland and came back to play Sweetens again. And I think what I didn't understand was that the style of golf at Sweetens is that style of golf. So actually, like, as much as like the sort of initial shock of, these like, your architect's architect bad boys are coming over to, do the Struie course, it actually makes sense to me, just given, if you look at Sweetens, it feels like the most Scottish golf course that I've played in the United States, right? It's like mostly one cut. There's not a lot of trouble. It's very subtle in like where the trouble is. And the greens are fun and big and reminds me of courses in Scotland that I've played. So like, I've said this, and this is like me completely getting high on my own supply, but like Spey Bay and Sweetens Golf Club share a lot of commonalities. And, we played Dornoch last year, and obviously the championship course is different than Struie, but I'm super excited to see what they do. And I think, to your point, one of the things that we talked a lot about when we were looking at architects is, they're artists, right? Like they're in that Strands mold of, if you give us the ability to touch this golf course, we're going to create something amazing, but we're going to create something that is within our vision. So like, first it's like alignment with membership, make sure that everyone's comfortable with that, but we're going to do what we think is right. And usually that turns out great. So I'm super curious to see, like, I don't think they're like at the forefront of their mind is tradition and it has to be this certain way. I think they're going to take sort of the ethos of Scottish golf and they're going to turn it into something that's super remarkable. And, we've seen Hance, work, and I guess Doak now at Castle Stewart, and there's been all of that work there. I think we're starting to see more American architects come over because they just love Scottish golf, and being able to work on one of these projects is obviously huge for the newly minted King Collins Dormer. So yeah, I'm super excited. Cooper, any thoughts on this?
I think you guys covered most of it. I was just perusing the satellite imagery of Dornoch and playing the championship course up the coast, kind of out and back. Struie's a little bit more in the bay side, and I think that that kind of reminds me a little bit of the Holler in South Pittsburgh. It's a little bit more
Valley.
Protected and closed. That's right. Getting to play with that land and kind of how magnificent it is over there will complement that style really, really well. So looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, they added, I think, 50 acres. I forget exactly where, but I think it is like an inland plot of land. So they'll have more land to work with. They'll be able to expand, kind of build some new holes, not just revise the existing ones. But yeah, it'll be, what I'm most interested to see is King Collins typically, like you said, Greg, they're artists. They kind of design things, they move a lot of dirt. They, I would say very much not in like the naturalists, kind of, move as little dirt as possible, more as like a, like Doak or Coore Crenshaw would be more known for. Places like Landman or 21 Club or Bounty Club, things like that. They're very much like, we're doing big, bold, changes and designing stuff out of nothing. Whereas, the typical go-to for a links course is like, well, we've got the great land for it. We're just going to like throw some greens on the existing stuff and then we're good to go and dig out some bunkers or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes
and
together.
Shout out to the Royal Dornoch Club for making this decision, right? They're taking somewhat of a risk in the context of Scottish golf. This decision making, to your point, is typically a little bit more down the middle of the fairway. I like that they're shaping some shots here. Any thoughts on Pinehurst 11? I still haven't played any of the Pinehurst courses. I've been to Pinehurst. I played courses in the Pinehurst area. I've never played the resort. People say they love 10. Coore Crenshaw 11 is a big deal. Thoughts on that? A little bit early, but just wanted to leave space for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just like the rich getting richer or something. It's like, they didn't have enough great courses. They're just adding to it. But no, I think it's a little bit of a signal of like actually Pinehurst playing catch up maybe to, some of the newer resorts that have come along, haven't been around as long as Pinehurst, obviously. But, Bandon, Sand Valley, Streamsong, all these places that have more of the modern architects and, work in that vein, specifically Doak and Coore Crenshaw, maybe, Hanson.
Yeah, and Coore Crenshaw redid too, right? So they're very familiar with the area as well.
Yeah. But that I think much more I mean, I don't know, people debate this, but more like a restoration. Enhanced did number 4, so that had been done, but there were no like original designs. Those were all Donald Ross courses originally, right? And so this is kind of like a signal that, okay, we're going to add more to the portfolio and step a little more into what people have shown a lot of interest in, right? By all the success of the Bandons and the Sand Valleys and, all the Capit resorts and everything else. It's obviously great. I'm sure the course will be amazing, and it just adds to an awesome portfolio they have there. So, will be cool to see.
Yeah, I think your point, like, it reflects just like the continued mainstreaming of architecture, right? Like, these architects have always been rock stars, but they were like indie bands that like only a select few knew about and talked about and went on forums to talk about and debate. But now, like, I talk to golfers in my life who know, like, this isn't going to blow your mind, but like, who know who Coore Crenshaw are because of Bandon, because of maybe they played, Red at Stream Song. And these are people who mostly are just like, I don't really care about the golf course. I just want to go and have a good time. But they're actually now thinking about architecture. I think that's a net positive for the industry. All right, let's just like touch on a couple things we're doing here, and then we'll wrap up with a little bit of potpourri. Restoring Hillcrest series. We launched the trailer last week, and we have the first episode in the can. So that should be coming out pretty soon. So be on the lookout for that on our YouTube channel. The Osprey Nest has opened at Spey Bay. This is awesome. So like, let's talk about this, just kind of like what it is and just the amazing continued like creativity that's happening at Spey Bay. Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I'll start, but just to say what it is, the Osprey Nest is our I guess I'll call it a mobile halfway house. So basically what we've done is created, I shouldn't say we, primarily the Spey Bay team, Bert, David, our awesome crew there, has created a mobile halfway house. So yeah, basically turned a trailer into what is now a really nicely appointed food and beverage station that can be moved around. There's an interesting thing where we kind of, ever since the very beginning when Spey Bay was mentioned and then, ultimately purchased, talking about like putting in a halfway house, where it would be, what would we do with it and everything. But it's actually kind of a tricky thing to manage, especially near term, because we're making a bunch of changes to the course. The routing's going to change. Like, things are going to be under construction for a while. So you can't just like go and build a halfway out on a spot, because then it's going to have to be torn down in like a year, right? So this is, I think, a really awesome and ingenious solution to that, where now we have something that can serve that purpose, but we can actually put it at different places on the course. We can move it around when, construction does happen and we need to move it to a different spot. We can have it, at different spots during a single day, or even like at some of our events, we can have it out on the course during play. We can bring it back into the new, putting green when everyone's, out there on the Himalaya section doing a putting match in the evening, or, what have you. And even can do things like we've actually, this has been awesome to see, but we've actually had like folks that live locally or businesses already require to like rent it out for their own occasions and stuff, which is kind of cool. So it's been very cool to see it come to fruition and like kind of a very unique solution, and is awesome. I think it's going to be, and it's a plus for members, plus for players that are out there at the far end of the course, which is a ways back to the clubhouse, and get some sustenance while you're out on the 7th and 10th tees.
Cooper, tell us about how the name was arrived at and kind of what that process was.
Yeah, looking forward to refueling during the summer solstice for 100 holes is going to be crucial for that. Shout out to everybody who suggested a name. We had some great options, ranging from the Tipsy Fishbird to the Barrel, Sayers Sporen, the Dram Shack, the Gorse Gap. But ultimately it came down to 3 options: the Osprey Nest, the Barrel, or the Lynx Nest. And the Osprey Nest edged out the other options. So this is our Osprey Nest, harkening to the club logo, the kind of statue down at the end of the peninsula there by where the River Spey meets the Moray Firth. It's the Osprey Nest. So everybody voted on that. Really appreciate that endeavor, the creativity, Bert and the team as well for putting this out there. It's an awesome addition to the course. Really excited about that. Speaking of Tipsy Fishbird, though.
Well, before we move on, though, I just saw one
Yeah.
quick hit POV. You're staring at this. What's the one thing you grab? You're looking at this picture. What's the one thing you grab in the middle of your round?
That was Spey Bay lager for sure.
Yeah. Red Bull and Snickers bar.
Love it.
Kit Kat.
I'm going Iron Brow, or Iron Brew. Just that stuff.
Brew.
I only drink it there, and it's great. Cool.
Shout out though, quick thing in that image to the left of the cans of lager. We do have these they're basically like granola balls, but from these guys we partnered with, St. Andrew's Bakery. It's named, based in St. Andrews, I think. But we're one of the first clubs to carry those, I believe, and they're awesome and getting rave reviews. So like a perfect mid-round snack to keep you going when you're
no free ads, but yeah, they are really good. I actually haven't had one yet. I'm excited to go back and try it. But yeah, to your point, Coop, a little bit of alpha here hidden in the episode. So if we're just gonna kind of whisper it to each other here, but we've been working with Seth McWhorter, who did our main logo for Spey Bay, has done a ton of work, worked with Sweetens Cove a lot, and just does amazing stuff. Check him out on Instagram. If you ever need a golf logo, you should talk to Seth. He is fantastically talented. But we have a certain alt logo in the works for a certain golf course in Scotland that we're very, very excited about. We're putting the finishing touches on it now, and we will be working not only with him to finalize that, but then starting to get that, embroidered and ready to ship on some upcoming drops in the pro shop. So be on the lookout for that. Super excited. It's a long time coming. A lot of demand. I'd say 80% of the demand comes from me, but then that 20% is also very loud in the Discord. So shout out to Chris for approving the expense to do this. But also, I'm just really excited to see that out in the wild. So if you're listening to this, you can break this in Discord and we can talk about it. All right. So then lastly, as we wrap up here, let's get to some potpourri. Phenom Jones in Discord brought to our attention this sort of, I think what all of us thought was a pretty crazy comment on Twitter just around sort of what constitutes an up and down. And there was like a reply guy, maybe it was being a troll, maybe it was a bit, I don't know. But he was like arguing about being able to get up and down from 150 out. And so I think that then just brought up a conversation in Discord about whether or not that constitutes an up and down, I guess. Like, I think we just all took it for granted that an up and down was sort of around the green. I know, Cooper, you posted a poll. Has that poll ended yet? There's 1 hour left. But what does getting up and down mean? The top is chip, pitch, and a putt, right? So just sort of around the green. Only 3.8% think it's just a full wedge and a putt. 0% think it's a full iron and a putt. And then 31.3% think any two shots for a par or a bogey, right? Basically, like you're not on the green in regulation, so you're getting up and down. But that could be from 500 yards away, or that could be from 5 yards away. So just quick hit here, like where do y'all stand? And then I think my second question is, do you have any other examples of this in golf where you just sort of took something for granted and then somebody else has a completely different way of doing or talking about it?
Yeah, I'll say interesting topic. No one provides more entertainment on golf Twitter than the like, I'm a scratch handicap, have been for 40 years, and here's my belief about, how this thing works. We had it recently with the one ball out kind of conversation. Are you aiming for the edge of the ball? Is it the center of one ball out from the edge of the cup? Yeah, some really interesting diagrams float around from this. I think the up and down concept is a little bit obvious. There seems to be some consensus. There are some questions on the actual data of how often it happens, especially if you're a self-described scratch 300-plus yard bomber, as everyone on golf Twitter is. But, I mean, it's got to just be 50 yards and in, short wedge, chip, putt kind of a situation.
Yeah. I think it's a missed green in reg, but you are close to the green that you would have hit in reg, and then you take two shots from there.
A lot of overlap with scrambling for par. in the concept, I think. But usually I think you got to get some air under it. It can't just be like you miss the green short and then, two putt. I think there's got to be two separate clubs, so an up and then a putt.
Yep, I agree with that. Chris, any thoughts here? Any wild takes?
I have nothing to add to this inane conversation.
Awesome. All right, so then speaking of inane conversations, Kyle Porter sort of at least broke into my consciousness the fact that Xander Schauffele released an app. I did a little bit of research on this. I actually downloaded the app. I'm a product manager by trade, so whenever I hear about a product, I use it. A couple things stand out here. Number one, the logo is exactly like the X logo, which I noticed like 3 minutes before starting recording. Obviously, it's not exactly like it, but it is. It's shocking how similar the Xander logo is to the X logo. One thing I really like about it, just to gas the developers up, I think that there's a company that did this for Xander. Obviously, Xander didn't develop it himself. He's not like vibe coding on his couch. But there's no sign-in when you download it, which is really nice. You just like open up the app and you're using the app. They don't force you to create an account first. I really like that. But you can create an account. I'm not going to do that, but you can. But it's nice. Like if you're a massive Xander fan, there's some good features in here. Like it shows like where he's playing next, some latest news. There's a ton of merch. If you want a Xander game day cashmere sweater by Decente, you get a free bobblehead and it's $415. So if that's for you, you can use this app to buy that. It's great. But it shows the events, it shows the news, and then it has some like stats, right? Which is kind of cool. It shows who his team is. If you are a Xander fan and you have an iPhone or an Android, like I'm not going to not recommend it. I think this is probably like your Super Bowl that your favorite player released an app where you can just go all in. I guess my question to y'all who probably haven't used this app at all, at least as much as I have now, what pro golfer shouldn't create an app next? Like what's one player, and then what would that app, like what's one feature that you would expect that app to have based on that player who shouldn't create that app next?
I think basically every player shouldn't create an app next would be my answer.
Which player should not create an app next
things
for, like the most? Right.
Yeah. Whoever's at the bottom of the money list. I mean, this is very much one of those things. It's like, it's kind of like, every sports star player is their own brand now, right? And kind of treated that way, which I think is justified. And there's many like things that they do that make a ton of sense, but like specifically making an app is like, why do you need an app versus a website? Like it's a very specific use case that doesn't totally port to me. But who would not need
Cooper? I think I see in the show notes while Chris thinks you have to pitch us on your two ideas, and then Chris, I'll circle back to you once you have one.
My first one would be the Patrick Reed app. It shows you the location of the nearest rules official so that you can cheat more effectively and not get caught. That would
allegedly.
Allegedly. Just for general knowledge, shows you the location of the nearest rules official. And then Patrick Cantlay's app would just be slow, generally. Brian Harmon's app times would, how the apps wiggle when you're trying to delete them?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh,
yeah.
Can we start an agency?
Starts to load, goes back. Starts to load, goes back.
I also had a Patrick Reed idea, but it was, so my pitch would be, it is AI that takes the videos of him cheating and changes it to him not cheating so that he has sort of plausible deniability. You can just be like, look, here's the video feed that I had. It shows the standard.
Video.
My other pitch is Jordan Spieth app that calculates the success probability of every shot in real time, which then allows him to do the lower probability shots. So rather than maximizing for like, oh, this is a smart idea, it basically gives him a green light on bad ideas. And as a Spieth head, he's my favorite golfer. That's the one that I would download, and I would be a daily active user.
Like the Bizarro Arcos app.
Love
great.
That.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody. I mean, this is the first time we kind of did this version of it. If you have feedback, let us know. We just kind of wanted to get together and talk about what's going on. There's a lot going on in the club. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world of golf. I think it was fun. Like, we got some business takes from Chris on golf course architecture world. We dropped some alpha. We talked about NCAA golf, which is like, maybe we're the first podcast to do that this year. So it was just really fun talking to y'all. If you found this enjoyable, let us know. If you hated it, let us know. Keep giving us feedback. We're excited to continue the channel. So thank you for taking the time to watch. Chris, thank you for taking the time to be here. Cooper, thank you for taking the time to be here. And, if you're listening or you're watching, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and we will see you, next week. I'm excited to do so. I can't. 7 more sleeps until the next podcast drops. I'm excited. Cool.
Let's go.
All right. Talk to y'all soon. Thank you.
See you.
Happy golfing, everybody.